Okay, welcome.
I got a full screen here.
All right. Feel your body. Notice the current state of your breath. Hear what you hear. Just notice the presence and being. Notice anything in you that wants to go do something. Just notice, relax. And just get a sense of life moving through you as you. Life moving through you as you. Not a your life and a their life and a my life. It's just one life. Moving through it all. The flow, the dance, the energy dance. Where's the boundary of what you call you? Well, I'm the body. Okay, well, where's that boundary exactly? Well, it's the skin. Okay, well, exactly. Where does that begin and end? Atoms are moving through everything. So feel that which animates you. Some call it the life force, some call it prana. Breathing in, breathing out. There's the movement of the body as it breathes, but where does the breath actually begin and end? What is the breath? Is it the movement of the diaphragm? Is it the exchange of gases between the lungs and the environment? Where's the boundary? Or is it just energy changing its form as it moves from one thing to the next? Well, if that's the case, then where do you begin and end? Do you? Even moving into the mind space. Thoughts come, thoughts go. Are you so sure that that thought you call yours is yours? Because if it's not, and you no longer identify with this thing as yours, what happens? What comes of that? What does that do to your awareness? Where does that begin and end? Does it? One flow, dancing through different forms, creating the form, dissolving the forms. Really, the nature of this energy is to move freely. And if that's the case, what business do we have to cling to any of it? What if this energy is infinitely intelligent, infinitely loving, infinitely benevolent, infinitely creative, creation in flow? What if this is what we are? What if the story doesn't really matter, ultimately? What if the story is not the story? His story, her story. The thoughts around the story tell us, this is me. But is that really true? What if the game is much bigger than we think? What if what we are is far more vast and infinite than the thought that tells us what we are? You don't have to accept it wholesale. It's enough to simply say, what if? And drop into that place of curiosity. Because curiosity comes from the depth of our being. Contains wonder. It's a transmission of wonder. Openness, vast, unlimited. And in the honoring of the we don't know, we call in this wonder and invite it in. So just come through us, come through the being, come through the psyche, come through the mind, come through the energy field, come through the body, come through the nervous system, and dance. And let's see what shows up. So I had the picture of Don, who many of you have seen in satsang over the years here, and a lot of us here have known Don for 20-something or more years, and a week ago Tuesday, right?
2 weeks ago tomorrow.
2 weeks ago tomorrow,
Yeah,
Don left
June
his
2nd.
body, and
checked out.
Wendy and I were flying back from England, and I had a life transformational time at Peter Gabriel's studio, but that's another story for another time. And we get off, we land, and I turn on the phone, and like there's 80 text messages in there. It's like, what's going on? And it was going to be that Don was going to be leaving the next morning. So I had come back from Real World Studios, and I was just so blown open on an inspirational level. I thought, well, the next satsang has to be about inspiration and creation. As soon as I got off the plane, that plan changed, and here we are. Mr. Gadada said, I'm not afraid of dying, or I'm not afraid of death because I'm not afraid of life. That's a really interesting statement.
It is. I like that.
Really interesting statement. Right?
Afraid of life.
So much of us, we're afraid of life.
Huh.
That if we just let loose and we just let it play itself,
Yeah.
somehow we're going to be extinguished. And, you know, where's that voice coming from? You know, there is a word for that. It's called the ego, but let's not go there.
No.
Not afraid of death because I'm not afraid of life. It's all one. It's all one flow. How many cells that are in your body were there the day you were born? Give you a hint, right? 0. So what happens with that? Cells come, cells go. But what is it in us that has been continuously present since forever? It can't be based on the cells. What about a thought? Thoughts come, thoughts go. What's the half-life of a thought? 16 milliseconds maybe? Well, we can't be thought, because if we were, which one? It's impossible. Very simple logic. Well, what about emotions and feelings? What's the half-life of an emotion? You know, a few seconds, a few days, a few years if you're really holding on to your shit. Because we can perpetuate it. But still, it's got limited life. It comes, it goes. Well, are you that? Which one? Feelings, emotions, thoughts, the physical body. What's going on here? Don's in a pretty good position to have something to say right now, but I had a dream when I was around 10 years old that I didn't understand until my 20s, but it was telling me I'm not the body. I was this tiny little awareness, I guess now I would call it that. And I was inside the body, and the body was just this empty shell. And I go out this eye, and I go into another one, and it's like, I had no idea what that meant. I was 10 years old. But I always understood at a deep level the continuity of awareness and consciousness. So I actually never had a particular fear of death. Because I just knew there's something bigger going on. And so Don was here, and he lived a good life. And he had a pretty hard road for 6 years. Really did. Pretty difficult dance with cancer and with chemo and treatments, and the treatments were just harder on him even than the cancer. And he went as long and as far as he could, and then decided, I'm done. But he went in such a joyous way. You guys were all around him, you know. It was like, I couldn't be there, but I was there energetically. Oh my gosh. I mean, you know, Monday night, he was leaving Tuesday. Monday night, because of jet lag, I was up all night anyway. And I was just like sitting in this medicine Buddha mantra all night long, holding Don in that space. And then I got to do a little drum recording thingy for him because, you know, he was part of our drum circle for 20-something years. And he played with Jim Greiner and David, and it's like there was this ending to a pattern that Don loved, and every time we got together, he had to make sure he had to sneak it in somehow, you know, and it was like. So what I did is I made a recording of that. My drum was a desk in the hotel room.
Yeah, no.
But I made that and I sent it to Ileana to play for him. And I said, Don, this is the appropriate way for you to go out.
Right.
And we had a little bit of a laugh over that. I had to say a little bit to him.
Yeah, you spoke to him over the phone.
I got to speak to him a
Yeah,
bit. Yeah,
yeah.
it was really nice. And so it changed the game for what we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to share about tonight. And the title is Approaching the Transition. That is the Ram Dass talk we're going to listen to. I think there's few people who are better to listen to for this kind of a subject than Ram Dass. An amazing soul. And the work he did with opening up and being okay with that. Because the entire culture we live in is afraid of life, therefore they're afraid of death. The denial of death is built into everything. And it's really important for us to see through that and not get caught in it. Really important. As Ram Dass will say, it's like the Tibetans say, like all of life, one of the key things about life is the preparation for death. And in my own work, I've come to realize there's really nothing to attain. It's all about letting go. It's all about letting go. Because if what we are is truly the infinite one, the infinite consciousness, then it's whole and complete. But this part of ourself, this little self, what I call the operating system for the body, the ego, is cut off from the whole, so it constantly feels like something's missing. So it's constantly on the hunt for something, and it can never be satisfied. It's the hungry ghost syndrome. It constantly is feeding itself. And some people make $1 trillion, and it still is not enough. This is called a sickness.
Isn't that interesting?
So there's nothing to attain. If the truth is we're already whole and complete, yes, we're in this holodeck. I mean, what do you want to call this plane that we're in? And we are having this experience. And we do have one part of our consciousness, a larger, if you listen to certain talks, the larger part of our consciousness is actually not incarnated. It's only a small part of the consciousness. But we're here, and we're very focused on here, for whatever reason. You know, kind of like, this is like 4th grade, you know? In fact, Don, you're Don. When I was working with him one day, we were talking about whatever it is I was doing in my work with people, and he very skillfully nailed the ego, and he said, you know, sometimes the best thing for a 3rd grader is a 4th grader. So we're in the 4th grade. We're here to learn things. And when we're done, we go. But there's nothing to attain. That's the interesting thing. It's about letting go. Moment to moment. This is the thing I've settled into. Letting go of this breath so it knows what to do. Nature, both on the physical level and the non-physical level, it's just maybe the same word, you know, one is, you call one God and you call one Mother Nature, but it's just one flow, knows what it's doing. And we're just somehow hypnotized into believing that we're not this. And that part is clinging to everything. So it's got to accumulate and hold and cling. And you know, what did the Buddha say is the source of suffering? The clinging
Grasping.
of mind, which shows up in 2 different forms, aversion and attachment. It's trying to grab. But it's about letting go. And you let go of this thought, And then you let go of the identification, the thought that says, I'm this, pay attention. And you let go of the latest flow of whatever feelings coming through. And you let go of the thought that says, I got to figure this out so I can be okay. And you just keep letting it go. And what happens is you settle into presence and being, and you realize everything's perfect. And you get into the flow of letting go, the flow of letting go. Your neurology changes because we've built up habits of clinging. But so what we're doing is we're going through an unlearning process. That's really what it is. And that is what death is. It's the maha in the Sanskrit, the big reminder of letting go. So what I'm realizing in my practice is just to let go moment to moment. Let go of this moment. Let it come, let go, let come, let go, let come. And then when it's time to drop the body, it's just another moment. Yeah, there's a different something about it perhaps, because it's very powerful, right? And birth and death are very powerful moments, and the veil is thin. But still, it's a letting go, letting go. So we're going to listen to Ram Dass do his thing here, and then we'll see about doing some sharing. I'm going to put this on, where am I? And you guys online, raise your hands, let me know if you can't hear it.
I realize it's very presumptuous to get up and talk about death as if I know. But I have a lot of chutzpah. That's Sanskrit for... And something has happened to me as a result of my meanderings through the realms of consciousness over the past 30 years that has changed my attitudes towards death. And a lot of the fear that death generated that led to denial has gone from me. And I'm one of the strange people that absolutely delights and enjoys being with people as they're dying. In fact, it is such incredible grace for me that in the morning when I know I'm going to be with such a person, I get absolutely thrilled in my body, my being. Because I know I'm going to have an opportunity to be in the presence of truth. We are living at a time where birth has come out of the closet in the past 20, 30, 40 years. And death is just beginning to come out of the closet. It is now beginning to be acceptable to consider the possibility that people actually die. Usually in our culture, it has been put behind doors, behind sheets, behind, you don't talk to the children about it, you don't show anybody. And for me, who has grown up in that culture, it was quite an experience when I started to live in India, where when somebody dies, they are put on a pallet and wrapped in a silk sheet or a sheet, and then carried through the streets to the burning grounds. And with Satya Hai, Satya Ha, with a mantra being recited as they go through the streets. And the death is public for everybody to see. The body is right there, it's not in a box, it's not hidden. And because India is a place of the extended family and very few and inadequate hospitals, most people are dying at home, so that most people as they grow up have been in the presence of someone dying. While in our culture, an amazing number of people, even at middle age, have never been in the presence of someone dying. They have walked away from it and hidden from it. And I was one of them, and I have certainly changed in the past 25 years. I think the reason that I changed was that, and I know this will offend some of you, but truth is always difficult, that through my experiences with psychedelic chemicals, you might say, particularly originally the mushrooms of Mexico, which were used by curanderos and oracles in Mexican religions, and the mushrooms have been used throughout religious history, actually, for mystical experiences. Through that first experience, I came in contact with a part of my being that as an adult I had not identified with, I had not acknowledged. And it was a part of my being that lay behind my social roles, behind my personality. And it was indeed a part of my being that didn't seem to have much to do with birth and death. It could be called soul or awareness, spirit or God or whatever. And for me, who was a Western social psychologist, professor at Harvard, materialist, philosophical materialist, that experience was an extremely confusing one, because there was nothing in my armamentarium of scientific methodology or in psychology that prepared me to deal with that component of my being. Once I experienced that being, it started to profoundly change the nature of my life after that, of who I thought I was. Because up until then, I had identified with that which dies. And as long as you identify with that which dies, there is always fear of death, because it's the fear of cessation of existence. And I realize now that although I didn't know the form that it would take after death, I knew that what there was about something about the essence of my awareness was outside of death. Now, the interesting thing for me at that time was that when I had that experience, it was what I call ineffable, indescribable, because I had no concepts to deal with what I was finding in my being. And probably had I been more emotionally connected to my Jewish roots, I would have found in the Kabbalah and in all of the Book of Brilliance and so on, I would have found metaphors and analogies for what I experienced. But I wasn't. And the book that came to my attention, that was brought to my attention by Aldous Huxley, who was part of our project and visiting at MIT that year, was a book called The Tibetan Book of the Dead. And what happened to me when I read the Tibetan Book of the Dead was I was reading descriptions of the direct experiences I was having with the mushrooms. Now, this was very confusing to me, again, because this book was 2,500 years old. I thought I was at the leading edge of the unknown. And here was a very ancient text, a book that was used by monks, by lamas, read to fellow lamas at the point they were dying and for the days following their death, whispered in their ear, about the process of dying. Out of that, my colleague Timothy Leary and my other colleague Ralph Metzner and I began to see the Tibetan Book of the Dead in metaphorical terms as a story of psychological death and rebirth, even though it was used as physical death and rebirth. And so we did a book called The Psychedelic Experience, which was a manual based on the Tibetan Book of the Dead for going through this psychological death rebirth. And I really think that although it has been made trivial in a way, the idea of dying and being born into truth or wisdom or spirit is really what our business is that we're talking about when we deal with death. And that as you have extricated yourself from a solid identification with body and with personality and with materiality, you begin to have spaciousness to allow for the possibility that death may be part of process rather than end. And I think I feel that very deeply. People say, do you believe that there is continuity after death? And I say, I don't believe it, it is, which offends my scientific friends no end, but belief is something you hold with your intellect, and this has gone way beyond that now. So you may be just sharing my total pathology. I have no idea. And it's up to your intuition to decide that. I would never know if I was completely crazy. So to show you how crazy I am, I have a friend who some of you have met through books, a friend named Emmanuel. Emmanuel is a spook, a being that has dropped his body somewhere along the way and speaks through a lovely woman named Pat Rodegast. And I must point out to you, when I'm talking about channeled beings, that all beings that don't have bodies aren't wise. That there are as many schlock people without bodies as there are with them, and there are a lot of well-meaning beings who've left their bodies and want to send back messages like, buy United States Steel, and they don't know any more than they knew before. So you have to be very discriminating when dealing with disembodied beings in the same way as you are with embodied beings. And
I never thought of
but
that.
Emmanuel has a lot of nachas. He has a lot of real wisdom, and he's like an uncle to me. He's just wonderful fun. And when I said to Emmanuel, I deal a lot with the fear of dying in this culture and death. What should I tell people? And he said, Ramdas, tell them that death is absolutely safe. I just put those two things together and realized what a far out line that is.
Yeah.
Death is absolutely safe. And then he added one more image. He said, it's like taking off a tight shoe. Can you hear that one? Like taking off a tight shoe. Now just imagine that you as spirit or awareness have contained yourself in an incarnation, or contained it in a conceptual model of who you are and on a storyline. And then at some point, you dissolve out of that, you break out of that, and there is this incredible release quality. Well, these kinds of things I'm talking about are very different from the way in which our culture is presently treating death. Presently, we see death as an enemy. The medical profession sees death as a failure. The temple of life is the intensive care unit. The medical person is the priest. And when that became unacceptable, we then moved towards the hospice movement. Now, the hospice movement is extremely useful in coming back to a psychologically supportive environment, because intensive care units don't allow babies, they don't allow dogs, they don't allow flowers, they don't allow the human connections that give you psychological support. And the hospice movement was very interested in providing psychological support. And as such, it has played a useful role. And it provides a warm setting either in the home or in a hospice residential space for people to have psychological support and respect and dignity as a human, as a personality, while they are dying. I want to support hospice and at the same moment express my reservations, because hospice, in order to be fully acceptable into the economic structures of the society, meaning Medicare and so on, has avoided the spiritual aspects. And it has done so quite intentionally, actually. And I find that Cecily Saunders, who started the hospice movement, who I think is a very caring human being, still says death is an outrage. And I personally don't experience that. So that I want to support the hospice movement as a step in the right direction, but I want to say that we have a lot further to go in terms of what our possibilities are for creating environments for people as they're dying, where they can have the spaciousness to explore the process they're going through, without being surrounded by people who feel sorry for where they are. Because And what I have tried to do with Stephen Levine and his wife Andrea and Dale Borglum, a number of people, is over the years create a space. We've had different programs like Dial a Death, where you can call up and talk to people and have pillow talk with people to share with them the process of staying conscious through dying. We've had the Dying Center. We had one in New Mexico. My model was, and this is, was that I knew that my being with people that were dying, here's my predicament. I'm incarnated, and I have all of the stuff that goes with an incarnation. The deepest one is what's called first chakra, for those of you in those systems, understand those systems, which is the fear of survival. It's preoccupation with survival. And I know that if I am going to work on myself spiritually in this lifetime, one of the things I want to do is work with my fear of death. And the way I can do that is by being around death during my lifetime. In the Theravadan Buddhist tradition, for example, they send the monks out to the cemeteries to spend the nights in the cemeteries. And in that tradition, they throw the bodies out there uncovered for the birds to eat it. So the whole thing is ecologically sound. So you go out there and you sit with the bloated corpse, the fly-infested corpse, the skeleton, and you get a chance to be aware of all the process of nature. And you watch your own disgust and loathing and fear, and as I am now, so you will be. Prepare yourself to follow me. And it's in a way beginning to see the whole way that the body is decaying and meditating on decay so that you can find the place in you that has nothing to do with that by opening to that rather than, because the denial of it keeps you stuck in it. That's the problem. Denial keeps you fixated. So part of the work, and that's why I wanted to get as close to the dying process as I possibly could. So the combination of the two things, one was that something had happened inside of me, which was a spiritual awakening that made death feel different. And the second was that I wanted to work on myself and be close to the deepest fear of incarnation, which was the fear of death. That combination led me to start in about 1963 to work with dying people and to want to be available to them. Now, what could I do? I wasn't a doctor, I wasn't a nurse. I really had very little. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an ordained priest. So the question, what I could offer a human being was that I've realized I've purified the way to say it now over the years. What I have offered another human being is a spacious environment with my mind in which they can die as they need to die. I realize that I have no moral right to define how another person should die. That each individual has their own karma, their own stuff to work out. It's not my job to say, you should die beautifully or you should die this way. I don't even know how they should die. So the dying center, in my mind, was an institution where people like me who wanted to be around people that were dying as part of their spiritual work on themselves would create the support system, whether they were nurses or doctors or attendants or whatever. And the place would be open to people who wished to use their death as a vehicle for their own awakening. Because as you're going through these processes, for a person that really sees life's journey as one of spiritual work on oneself, this is an optimum set of experiences to work with, the process of dying. So if you imagine now you have an institution in which everybody in the institution is there in order to spiritually awaken. They're called monasteries or ashrams. So instead of a place where and it happens there are dyers and there are helpers of dyers there. But that's ground, not figure. The figure is the spiritual awakening. And everybody's there for the same reason. So you can hear, like, what I experience is that when I am with somebody, I work a lot with AIDS patients. Now here's a young person who very often is the object of social stigma. They're dealing with family rejection often. They're dealing with an opportunistic illness in which there are symptoms that are occurring in a jumbled mass, and you feel better, and then you feel sick, and then you hit here, and then hit there. They're dealing with economic difficulties. When I come in to be with them, the first thing I have to do when I sit down with them is to open myself to all my reactions to their predicament. The minute I try to deny it, it catches me. So I have to open myself to it. So I have to open myself to my empathic reactions. That is, to me as a separate entity, feeling what it would feel like if I were being socially ostracized, had an opportunistic illness, was young, didn't have a chance to live out my dreams, all of it, all of the pain of it. So when I sit with somebody, the first thing I have to do is open my heart as a separate entity to this other separate entity and go through the process of empathy. That's not compassion yet, that's empathy. As a separate entity feeling what they're feeling. And to be able to do that is interesting. To be able to keep your heart open in hell, really. To keep your heart open when it's breaking in a situation. To do that requires that you have cultivated the spiritual perspective behind it that allows for the wisdom of the universe, that allows for I mean, this is a little much to say, but it's true, that allows for the perfection that exists even within the imperfection. And once you are rooted in that understanding, if you have stood back, if you've been able to stand back enough to see the beauties of the laws of the universe, to see the exquisite intricacy of the unfolding of the spark of God manifesting into form, Shekhinah, if you see that, just the brilliance of it, you are in awe. And at that point, the little mind that you have, which is just part of the manifestation, suddenly gets humble before that. And instead of saying, this is terrible, this suffering is awful, if I were doing it, I'd do it differently, you say, I really don't understand. But there's a place in me that has faith in the unfolding. And what has happened to me as a result of inner work, which I am talking about and commending to you, is that two planes of consciousness, living both with the perfection and with the pain of the suffering, allows you to stay with the pain without pushing it away, because you have the balance within yourself. It's as if you're part of the unity and you're also separate. You're part of the unfolding of all that includes suffering. And once you've started to spiritually awaken, you re-perceive your own suffering and start to work with it as a vehicle for awakening. Now, the interesting part of that paradox is you don't say to another person that says, oh, I'm suffering, you don't say, hey, it's grace. Because you have to give people space to do what they need to do. And if they're at the stage of their evolution where they see their suffering as this horrible thing that's being done to them, you can do the best you can to remove their suffering, the way they're experiencing their suffering. As my guru says, God comes to the hungry in the form of food, and you get what you need. The more you are aware of the spiritual nature of life, the more you see the moment of death as a moment for release, for taking off the tight shoe. And the art form in dying is that at the moment of death, you are neither grabbing at life nor pushing it away. You're neither pushing nor pulling. It's the attraction and aversion that keeps you holding to form. So to prepare for the moment of death, when the processes that go on in consciousness are a dissolving of boundaries, a speeding up of awareness, a kind of an opening and expanding, to be in that process where you don't go, no, and grab hold, one prepares. One prepares for the moment of death. And it's interesting that in almost all the Eastern traditions, people see one of the works of life is the preparation for the moment of death. Now, each person does what they can do. We don't make believe we're more ready than we are. So that I'm very pleased that we're getting to the point now where people can decide how much pain medication they need in collaboration with their doctor, rather than the nurse saying, you had it 4 hours ago, you can't have any more. Each person knows, and when they know they have control over their pain medication, they need a lot less, it turns out. Because a lot of it is their fear of pain that they're dealing with. See, after the first stage, when you empathize with the pain of another person, then comes the next stage where you start to meet the person behind it all. It's like, are you in there? I'm in here. Far out. What are you doing in there? I mean, if I can just run you through this kind of oversimplified model, if you had a little television receiver channel right here next to your eyes, what you're finding, what we're talking about is planes of consciousness or channels on a television set. And most of us, most of the time in this culture, act as if we have a 1 or 2 channel set. We don't have cable. And today we're talking about cable. We're talking about acknowledging all these other channels that are floating around in the room, but we're not picking them up because we don't know how to tune our receiver. That's basically what this is about. So on the first channel, when you look at another human being, you see old, young, dark, light, fat, thin, etc. You see physical body. And if you're obsessed with your physical body, that's what you see when you look in the world, other people's physical bodies. That's the channel you're on. If you flip one channel, then you're in the psychosocial realm. You see power and you see happiness and sadness and neurosis, and it's the therapy channel. It's the social role channel. It's where there are mothers and truck drivers and all lawyers and all the different roles and identities, all the social stuff. That's all a channel, and that's as the world turns, and it's a never-ending source of fascination. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. Most people are happy with channel 2. In channel 1 and 2, about 98% of the people you've ever known are busy with those 2 channels all the time. But now we're talking about something else. We're talking about shifting, now you shift one more channel, and there's a little in-between one, which is called, it's like the astral plane. It's where you're dealing with archetypes, the Jungian archetypes. You're dealing with what's called astral or mythic roles and mythic identities. It's that sort of place where you see people in their mythos rather than in their personality structures. And you look at me and you say, he's an Aries, I just knew it. You know, it's a Sagittarius and Leos, and you see there's 12 of us in various permutations. If you flip to the next channel, you go behind all those individual differences and you just see another soul just like you that has all that packaging that's different than you, but is just another being just like you. That's when you say, are you in there? I'm in here. How'd you get in that one? And you see all of the stuff of the personality and the astral and the mythic and the body and all of it as like packaging. And you see the spiritual individual entity. And just for fun, if you turn the channel once more, what it is you're looking it's looking at itself, looking at itself. There's only one of it. It's awareness, aware of itself. And just to keep the Buddhists happy, you turn it once more and it all disappears, which is basically the one in itself. It's basically the one in itself, rather than looking at itself. Now, our predicament is that as long as you're on channel 1 and 2, you are afraid of death. Until you are rooted in these other levels of reality, that gives you a perspective about death that allows you to see death as a transformation of things which change. You can intellectually know from channel 1 and 2 that after all, it's all nature and we are going to die. But that doesn't dissipate the fear. Fear comes from a gut, intuitive knowing that comes from acknowledging these other parts of your being. And I say acknowledging. It's not learning them as if you're getting them from outside. It's acknowledging them from within yourself. And almost everybody has information about these all the time, but everybody's busy not having it. When you're too busy in channel 1 and 2, you treat information from these other channels as if it's error in the system. It's static. I can't bring in the channel clearly. Somehow, it was interesting. When I was a psychologist, which I guess I still am, but when I was a research psychologist, the best we could do in predicting human behavior, psychological behavior, were correlations around 50 or 55, 60 when we were lucky. That's accounting for about 30% of the variability. That means 70% of the differences, the variability, we couldn't account for. And we said, well, that's just the fact that our tools aren't good enough yet. But we called it error variance. Error variance includes karma. It includes all of the other planes of reality that explain who we are at this moment. And I just like to keep the door open for some of these things. What happened was, I've learned something about love, which is nice to learn about. And it's important to understand that in this dealing. First of all, most of our images of love in our society have to do with romantic love. They are poetic love. They are interpersonal love. I love you, you love me, we love each other. We all give lip service to, but hardly ever really acknowledge that there is another kind of love that is not interpersonal. We call it conscious love, Christ's love, God's love. And the image I have is that when you grow up in a society of conditional love, which most of us have grown up in because of the way in which we are socialized, we end up very needful for love. And that's why a lot of the literature is about love and affection. It's as if there's something in us that's very hungry. We're on a deprivation diet. And so when we meet somebody who has the key to unlock something in us, we experience that we are in love, and we say, I am in love with you. What we're really saying, another way of saying it in a kind of an instinct literature is, you are the key stimulus that is releasing the mechanism in me that allows me to be in love. You're my connection. And as my connection, I want to possess you. Because I'm hungry to be in this state in my being. I have come into the place of love in my being. And everything is beautiful suddenly. But it only happens when you're around. So where will you be Thursday? And where will you be Friday? And where will you be for the rest of my life? And the tendency is to want to possess the beloved, which, as you and I both know, is one of the quickest ways to destroy the experience. And that love has in it fear because somebody's going to die or go away or find another lover or something. Now, That's interpersonal romantic love. And that's why there's so much poetry about it, because it has the fear and the joy and all of the stuff in it. But now take that image. The key stimulus is something that opens you to the place in yourself where you are love. And through the spiritual practices and through understanding the metaphysics and through opening yourself, you find yourself starting, whether you call it awareness, where you draw your awareness back from thought, or however you get in there through meditation, through devotion, through study, whatever your practices are, you find yourself starting to rest in the place of presence in your being, which has the quality of that openness, that boundarylessness, that intuitive heart space where you experience that you are in love. But now you are no longer dependent on an external thing to awaken you to it. You're beginning to rest in it. So you are beginning to be love. And once you have that spiritual perspective that allows you to keep your heart open in the hell and the pain and the grief and the stuff, then you can start to be in love with another human being without feeling the possessive quality about it. And because I work a lot with people that are grieving for the loss of a loved one. And my way of supporting grieving is to say, grieve, my God, grieve. Don't try to stop grieving. Don't be strong. Grieve some more. Go grieve some more. Just allow the human pain. Don't hide it. Just keep going through it. And then at some point, you will quiet down naturally. Might take a couple of years, who knows? At some point you will quiet down, and you will be quiet enough to realize that the love, when you and another person enter into the space of love together for even a moment, that relationship has transcended relationship. You have entered into a unitive moment together, and that transcends death. And at that moment, when you quiet down enough and you're sitting with your beloved, you suddenly realize that where did they go, as Ramana Maharshi said, where could I go? I'm still here. It's just the form that left. You were busy missing the form. You weren't missing the essence, because the essence is here. And when you recognize that, you feel as a human being enriched by everybody you have loved, instead of deprived by the loss of their form. You realize that they're living through you, and that everybody you've ever loved is part of the fabric of your being now, in the way in which you go forward. And that's where grief gets transformed into a living love space, of a spiritual transcendence of the pain. In Tibet, when they give you the instructions, they say, at the end, they say, as the earth element leaves, your body will feel heavy. As the water element leaves, you will feel dryness. As the fire element leaves, you may feel cold. As the air element leaves, your out-breath will be longer than your in-breath. The signs are now here. Don't get lost in the detail. Let your awareness go free. Imagine, oh, I'm thirsty. She's thirsty. Give her water. I'm cold. Instead of, the earth element. The water element. Just recognize what an adventure this transformation is. The appreciation of death and the spiritual journey after death is the prerequisite for living life joyfully now. Death does not have to be treated as an enemy for you to delight in life. Keeping death present in your consciousness as one of the greatest mysteries and as the moment of incredible transformation imbues this moment with added richness and energy that otherwise is used up in denial. I encourage you to make peace with death, to see it as the culminating adventure of this adventure called life. It is not an error, it is not a failure. It is taking off a tight shoe, which you have worn well, but those that find the way in the morning can gladly die in the evening, it is said in the mystical literature. So I encourage you to explore and find in your being that part of you that is on those other channels, so that when on channels 1 and 2, the World Turns series comes to its final chapters, you won't be caught in feeling loss, but rather the adventure. Because from where I'm sitting, life on this plane of reality, because I live in the world of reincarnation, of karma, of life on this plane is like being in the 4th grade. You took birth here because you had certain work to do that involves the suffering you do, the kinds of situations you found yourself in. This is your curriculum. It's not an error. Where you are now with all your neuroses and your problem, you're sitting in just the right place. Imagine that. Imagine that. Nobody made an error. And all that stuff in you of saying, if only I could be. No, this is it, including the if only. It's perfect. And then at the time you graduate, and somebody says, oh, but he died so young. So if you graduate from 4th grade early, big deal, wonderful. Don't get so caught in worshiping life that you lose the balance, that realizing that the Spirit says, live life fully and richly as a partner with God, and at the same moment, don't be afraid of the next thing. Go towards it with openness and with love, and not with forbidding. The way that is understood in the morning, one can gladly die in the evening.
There you have it. Now, take a moment and just soak in the essence of what we just heard. No, those are sheets. There's one. All right. Anyone want to share anything?
That was profound.
The usual, another day in Ram Dass land.
Profound and very well put.
Yeah.
Well explained.
It seems like the perfect culmination of our choir did a requiem. So we were ensconced in that and spiritual, Negro spirituals. Then we had Don And last night, Matthew Shepard. Wow. So much about death. The ultimate destination.
Anyone else?
The ultimate adventure. I love how he
The ultimate adventure. Yeah,
the closing the final adventure, whatever he
yeah,
says.
the ultimate adventure.
Yeah. And that whole notion of approaching life and death with curiosity, wonder, and awe is something we have to learn from each other. It's not part of
It's not part of the
our
culture.
upbringing.
Right. Curiosity, wonder, and awe. When you allow that about death, then you have it about life. If you close it about death, you close it about life.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, that's better.
Yeah.
When my husband in the last couple of days was on his quote unquote death,
Yeah.
I was inspired to keep whispering in his ear, it's safe to die. It's safe to die. It's safe to die. And I feel like that both helped me as well as made the transition very gentle. And I have the good fortune of having a guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, who I'm just studying right now. He has 5 lessons just about death and life after death. And what he encourages his devotees to do is to not grieve around for the person, but to be happy for them in their ascendancy. And I feel like that really makes a huge difference to focus on sending them love and focusing on their happiness. And as a result, when people come into my home, they often experience saying that John's energy is pure and it's just pure love. And I feel like my relationship with him has continued. There's been no discontinuity in the love. It's still there. And I feel it every day. And Yogananda actually gives these tools to connect with loved ones on the other side. Everything from giving yourself the intention before you go to sleep at night that you'll encounter them in a dream, to focusing at your spiritual life and asking to connect with them, which works. I feel like my relationship continues in even a deeper form than it was before. And so I'm so grateful to learn about death. And I've been at many, many people's passing. And it feels like it's just holding a place of safety. This is so natural, and you're going to be clear, and you're going to love it. There's so much more freedom on the astral plane than here.
Yeah. Thank you, Martha. That was beautiful. I remember when Yogananda lost his mother, he said, I know she's right with me here, but I will still grieve and mourn the loss of her form. And that kind of goes to what Ram Dass said in some of you hold both simultaneously. And then that lets the joy come in as well. Yeah.
I'm in awe of the mystery of life and death.
Yeah, the mystery.
I'm happy that I can see. Oh, sorry if I got loud.
No, that was me. That was monkeying with the thing.
And Eric, could you shift the camera a little bit so I see all of Catherine? Because she's a part of what I'm going to share, as she knows. I came very close to physically dying a couple of years ago, and although I never did physically die, so it wasn't a question of leaving my form and coming back. And in this kind of dream state that I was in, I did experience passing twice. And I think it was the second time, my experience of it was that Catherine was sitting right in front of me, and we had this beautiful eye contact that was just love. And I just let go so beautifully and easily and peacefully. And what I came to find out is that Catherine was in reality sitting in a chair in the hospital by my bed when that happened. And it was as peaceful as I had imagined for many, many years that death would be. And I love that you're there to share that story. And I don't know if I hadn't been in the kind of dream state that I was in, if that could have happened. I had a brain infection, so my brain was really being wired in an odd kind of way for a while. But it was the level of deep joy that I have in my life now. I've had a lot of joy for a long time, and I still have that. And what's also there now is this deep joy and really understanding that I'm not afraid of dying. And I have the experience that I can just let go. I've only been with one person as they died, and he was so afraid. And my experience was that I was able to share my love for him and for the journey that he was on in a way that allowed him a little bit more peace than he had. I just know that the experience for me was beautiful and deep and rich and lovely.
The more we are able to be at peace and open and spacious about this, the more we enable everyone else to have that experience, whether we're physically with them or not. Because energetically, it's all it ever is energy. And so when our energy shifts into openness, everyone we're connected to gets a dose. That's the way it works. Everything's connected to everything. And simultaneously, we tap into those who are open too and can help us open. It's kind of what we just did here, sitting for 40 minutes listening to Rhonda. Why he says we're all walking each other home. I remember my brother was dying. I was there in the hospital with him. He was hooked up to everything, pretty deep in the medication. And, you know, his family, his wife and 2 kids were there, and they're going through all sorts of things around it all. And I was just in grief of losing his form, but I was right there with him. And I managed to get some time alone with him, and he was like this. I was on this side, I was on the other side. And I just said, listen to me. You are not the body. this one's done. Don't worry. I'll handle everything on this end, but don't worry. And in the depth of that intense stuporing medication, right, he all of a sudden lifts his head up and he opens his eyes and he looks at me and he mumbles something, and I wasn't sure at the time. I thought, holy shit, maybe I blew what's left of his denial and I disturbed him on it. No. But then he said something and then he fell. In the middle of the night, I realized he was saying, I love you. And I didn't want to go. I was going, but I really didn't want to because of that intense grief. But I knew I needed to be there because I was able to hold a space where death was okay. I mean, he spent the entire cancer process basically in denial of death and trying to push his way into survival, etc. And that was his path and his journey, and I honored what he went through. But because I was comfortable with death, he was able to let go again. And so we do real service to everything. Ultimately, even the war is really a denial of death. Isn't that bizarre? It's a denial of grieving. It's a denial of feeling the pain. So we project it out and we create an other, and then we attack the other, and that's the way that shit goes. So for us to just be with this and be okay with this, which is really deep spiritual work, we're doing service to the whole. And so when we come in contact, and like our friend Don here, and we want to help be with people in that way, we're growing and we're helping them release. Anyone else?
Kate Munder from the Threshold Choir put, we are just walking each other home to music.
Yeah.
Can I sing that?
Go ahead.
We are all just walking each other home. We are all just walking each other home. We are all just walking each other home. We are all just walking each other home.
And with that, just fall into the present moment. Just feel our connection to each other and to everything. This is everything. And this is eternal, whether we have this form or not. And just take some time and sit with the form and the formless. There's the still point in you, in us. That place of the form and the formless. You just be with this.
this spring has been a powerful time for me. Began with my birthday party and turning 80 years old is a time of reflection and to consider, that it's not much time left, really, compared to the life I've had up to this point. But it's also, there's layers and there's layers that are unfolding before me. Since Dawn has passed, I've been supporting Ileana, and it brought up when I lost my spouse, what she's going through. And so I've been able to have empathy for her because I went through that same process myself many years ago. So that's another layer that I've been living with. And I just keep coming back to the power of this community that I'm involved with. Because I live down here by myself. No one in my family, I'm just me. But I've got this community of support. And it will continue after I'm gone. This community will survive and continue. So there's so many layers. It's really interesting.
One thing that was so clear to me when I was with Don after he had passed, just with the body, it is the most definitive, clear, raw, pure, authentic experience. I mean, there's no like, well, maybe, there's no gray area. And it's so refreshing, that purity, that honesty of condition, if you will. There's no pretense, there's no hyperbole, there's no blaming, there's no lies, there's no marketing. It's just that. Comfort, joy, That was my experience, and I hope that's what Dawn was experiencing too.
I've never been through an experience like that before. Someone consciously going through the process with their loved ones surrounding them, and just, it's really incredible. So that's one way to go. The other way is when Jeff left, gone.
Instantly out of your body.
He was just gone.
And neither one is more
Better or worse.
or
No,
valid.
it's just it's just the two extremes.
That's right.
And then the rest of us will probably experience something in the
Somewhere in there.
Yep. The spectrum
No, I mean,
of experience.
Ramana Maharshi says, no one leaves a moment too soon or a moment too late. David Hawkins says, the moment you're born, your exit plan is in place. And when I was considering moving, I never thought I'd live in California. I was just like, they have earthquakes. And then the 89 quake hit here. And I was visited the very first time, a month before. And then so you guys, Barry and Joyce Vassell.
Yeah.
So I was friends with them, and they were living at a home in Aptos, one story for 14 years, and they said the thing just pancaked. And it was propane driven, so the lines broke, and you're hearing and they knew it could explode at any moment. And nothing happened. And he said this to me when I was in New York, thinking maybe I'll move to New Mexico, or I was starting to contemplate. He said, I realized in that moment that until it's your time, nothing is going to take you. And when it is your time, nothing is going to keep you here. And all of a sudden, him saying that to me just blew open this lane,
Predestined.
and I said, I'm moving to Santa Cruz.
There you are.
And here I am. And what that really means, until it's your time, nothing can take you. And when it is your time, nothing can keep you here. What that means to me is I could just relax.
Yes. Not worry about it.
Don't worry about it. I'm not afraid of death because I'm not afraid of life. Bring it in. Whole being, the whole thing, or as John Kabat-Zinn wrote, the full catastrophe is a funny way of putting it. Bring it in. Live the whole thing. And that's like trust, and there's nothing to attain. It's all letting go. It makes it so much easier. So much easier. Because what the ego says is you need this, this, and this to be okay. But what it doesn't tell you is as you're busy trying to accumulate this, this, and this, it's moving the goalpost. Well, now you need this, this, and this. You know, the Knicks won. New Yorker, I'm a Knicks fan, but it's not the Warriors, it's the Knicks.
Right.
And it was an incredible series. And, you know, they were incredibly elated, and all the New Yorkers were incredibly elated. And I said, well, what do you think they're thinking now? How do we do it again? How do we do it again? How do we do it again?
What's
That's
the
not,
next?
it's not where it is. So accumulation and attainment is a trap. I'm not saying don't go for stuff, but you go for stuff when the Spirit says, here, trust me, it comes to you. Trust me. This is like normal. It's just letting go. Letting go, letting go. This big thing fell into my lap several years ago, and along with this understanding that said, because I was like blown away, it just happened. Just like a lot of things I can list a long list of, but it just happened. And what came in was a clarity that when I let go of my agenda, the universe gets me to desire what it's about to give me, and everything is in flow. So it's just letting go and trust. And that's the mini death. Letting go, moment to moment, moment. And then when the big one comes, you're here, you're present, you're not clinging. It's going to be what it's going to be. Don Rosenthal asked me one of the most important questions of my life when I was on MDMA. And mushrooms, come to think of it. He asked me, is it safe to die? And he asked at the perfect time, because I was in complete clarity. Without hesitation, the answer is yes. Now consider this. If you accept that it's safe to die, what's the implication of that for the rest of every other part of your life? I'm not trying to rush the process, but it's safe. The body may go, it will, but that which I truly am, that which you truly are, that which we truly are, is infinite energy. What can harm this thing? What can destroy it? It's impossible. And so therefore, it's about shifting the identity. I've been working for several years now about what I consider the last sticking point, is I'm the body. And never thought I could kind of dismantle that, but you stick with it, and you understand the infinite nature of that which I am, and you keep coming to it, and your identity starts to gradually shift. Until at some point you realize that there actually is no identity. And all there is this. Exactly as it is now, exactly as you sense it, where it's impossible to bring words into it. This. Love being with you all.
Welcome home.
Welcome home. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Welcome home to us all. That's what I said to Don in the outgoing email for tonight.
Oh.
Welcome home, Don.
Yeah.
But I'll say this. You don't have to die in order to come home. Just who you think you are has to die. And that's okay. That's okay. Who you think you are will die. Who you actually are cannot. Stephen Levine has a good book, Who Dies? Who dies?
Everybody.
Right, which is why the trick is to become nobody.
Right.
Nobody doesn't trick.
Nobody
Nobody doesn't die.
Double negative.
You become nobody. That's all of Ram Dass's thing. It's like becoming nobody.
Do you know what year that talk
That
was
talk
from?
was early 90s. It was
He's
early
funny.
90s.
I like his sense of humor.
Oh, he's incredible.
Have you ever heard him talk about how he was afraid when he actually was having a stroke?
Yes.
So it's interesting to hear him in his earlier talk saying he's not afraid of dying, and then he's actually dying, and he talks about after how afraid he was as
Yeah.
it was happening.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's very ingrained in the body. So the nervous system says, I'm dying. And he saw exactly where he was still identified with the nervous system. We all have it. It's a fool's errand to think that we don't have it to deal with. Yeah.
And that's what's so powerful about what Margot went through.
Yeah.
She was so ill,
Yeah.
on the cusp,
Yeah.
on the edge.
Glad you made it through, Margot.
Yep,
Yay.
you're back with us.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah.
One of
And
the
you-
things that I know is that I scared a lot of people and I didn't scare myself, which is something that I'm hugely grateful for. And yeah, and as we talk about grieving the body, thought for me is sadness about the grief that my leaving my form will create behind me. And it's just something that I sit with every now and then. Do my best not to think about it, just sit with it. That I have many friends in my life who are considerably younger than I am. And so the odds are that my form will die first. And having talked to people after I was better, and as my niece said, once you quit trying to die, it was kind of fun. And yeah, it's like having heard people talk to me about what their experience of what I went through was, opened the door on that experience, which I had not thought about at all before, outside of when I've lost people that I cared about, was other people's grief when I leave my form.
Well, it's an interesting thing because at some level we feel like our leaving brings on suffering in others. But the way I read it is our leaving makes everyone that we love that loves us realize how much they love each other. And yes, that comes, part of it comes in the form of grief.
Mhm.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't either. And every now and then, my little form gets in there with it a little bit.
Oh, gee. And you're the only one, Mark.
Oh, sure I am. I'm
The rest
sure.
of us are ready, we're
Yeah,
done.
we've never done
We've
that.
been waiting for you, jeez.
Hmm.
Castaneda's Don Juan says, always keep death on your left shoulder. Which we know means always stay aware.
I just had an extraordinary experience. I'm looking out my window at the most gorgeous sunset, and Don just said, "You're welcome."
Hey, Don.
Last Sunday, I had a drum circle here, and when I spoke to him, on the Tuesday of his death,
Yeah.
I said, because he was invited already prior. I said, we got the drum circle on Sunday. You better be there.
Right.
He was.
Uh-huh.
It was the most powerful drum circle I've
It
ever
was, yeah.
sat here in this room.
Hmm.
We're both form and formless simultaneously. Where's that place in you that is aware of both simultaneously? That's home. Hmm.
Can I sing another little threshold song
Of
related to
course.
what we're talking
Yeah,
about?
that's a good way to bring things in for a landing.
In love, practice only this. Practice letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go. Practice letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go. Holding on comes easily. We don't have to learn it. Holding on comes easily. We don't have to learn it. Practice letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go. Practice letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go.
You still have a beautiful voice, Antonina.
That's good.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm.